Welcome to Unlocking Childhood, coffee and conversations with early childhood experts and real-life parents to explore the importance of quality early childhood care from birth to 5 years of age.
We will cover topics such as sleep, nutrition, emotional and behavioral regulation, the importance of play, and the well-being of parents.
We are your hosts, Kelsey Moeller, Human Development and Family Science Extension Specialist.
And I'm Germán Posada, professor at the Department of Human Development and Family Science at Purdue University. Well, welcome to Unlocking Childhood. Today we will be talking about big emotions and big behavior. Young children learn to regulate their emotions by first observing and experiencing how adults handle their own emotions and behavior. Setting boundaries can be tough, especially during big emotions. So this episode dives into age-appropriate limit settings, tantrums, and how calm, empathic responses help children learn self-control and emotion regulation.
And our guests today that we're joined by Dr. Leigha MacNeill with the Department of Human Development and Family Science here at Purdue University. We have two parents that are on today with us, Miranda Goetz with 2 children, and you can share more about your family as well when we get to you. And then we also have Christopher Fogle, and also a father of 2 daughters. Thank you all for joining us and being with us today. We want to start off with talking about setting limits. So, Leigha, would you start us off on why do you think setting limits is so important when we're talking about young children?
Yeah, that's a great question. Setting limits is really important, in part because that's how kids learn how to control their emotions, control their behaviors. And so when we give them limits, when we set these boundaries, they're beginning to internalize the rules of the world, what they should be doing at home versus school versus like in other public settings, right? And those rules and demands can change. And so being able to learn those limits and those boundaries is really important for knowing how to navigate our social world. And it's also important for young kids to also test those limits too. And I think that can be the tough part when we're like, okay, we should be setting these limits, and my kids shouldn't really be pushing them, but they should be to a degree, right? They're becoming active agents in their worlds. They're learning how to do things a little bit better on their own. They're learning the consequences of their actions, and that's in part by them testing that. So it's kind of like, how do we navigate that when it's really frustrating sometimes for everyone?
You want to go next?
Yeah, I could. So Miranda and Christopher, how is you? I know that you're parents of a 5-month-old, which limit setting for a 5-month-old.
Yeah,
it's very different from setting limits for a 4-year-old. Christopher, you have a 4-year-old girl and a 2-year-old girl, and you have a 3-year-old girl. So how is limit setting when you're dealing with kids at different ages for you guys?
It can be challenging, I think. With specifically my 3-year-old, she tests all of those boundaries, and so we're learning, what can I do, what can't I do, and trying to teach her in the right way to do the right things is pretty challenging.
Miranda, when you said she's trying to test limits, could you provide specific examples of what she does and how you respond to those?
Yeah, I can. She will just try and get away with anything and everything, really. She, for example, her little sister, she really wants to help, but that's not really safe all the time. So I try and give her safe ways she can help me with her little sister. Obviously, she's not going to be able to pick her up and carry her safely, but she could help me carry her blanket or her bottle or something. Okay. That's challenging, though, because she just wants to grab her and pick her up and take her.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
So for our girls, we have kind of 2 different stages of development. I feel like with our 4-year-old, we are setting more boundaries because she can conceptualize those a little better, and we remind her that she is modeling behavior that little sister is also observing to see how she's doing it. So we try to help remind her in that way. And one of the things that we also do a lot is volunteer the idea that choices carry consequences. And we try to encourage them to be independent and know that they have the option of choice, but also that within those boundaries, that if they are going against maybe the limitation, that there will be a consequence, good and bad, depending on what it is, but allowing them to understand that that does kind of can impede or progress depending on which direction that is. So that's where we are with our two girls, because our 4-year-old wants to be very independent and alone at this stage, and our 2-year-old always wants to be with big sister and does a lot of what she does. So we try to not play against that, but use it as a benefit to help advance that idea. So,
Dr. MacNeill, what advice would you give parents when they're dealing with these tough situations, but they are also possibly in distress somewhat? You know, maybe they had a really difficult day, or they had a stressful day, or they're very busy and, you know, their mind's on a lot of different other things. What would you say is the best way to approach that, or just handling those tough times like that?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I love so much about what you both shared, and I feel like those are very realistic moments and you're handling them really well. Actions have consequences, and kids have to start learning those, and they learn that by trial and error and that cause and effect, right? And so that's the best way. Testing those limits is a good way, and letting them do that and realize some of those consequences, if it's not putting them in harm in any way, can be really good for their development. And giving your kids choices. For instance, letting the big sister help the little one, even if it's not that helpful, right? Like, most of what they're doing right now isn't super helpful, but giving them choices, like you can do this or this to be helpful, is giving some of them back that power that they're really kind of seeking, and that control they really want right now. And as far as those distressing moments, right? When our kids are really upset, that is a stressful moment for us too. So their brains are on overdrive, our brains are also in overdrive, and that's especially heightened if we've also had a bad day, or we're really stressed out, or we just don't have the bandwidth. And the best way to get your kid to keep their cool is for you to try as hard as you can to also keep that cool too. It's really hard, but modeling that calmness, sitting down with them and not even just saying anything, but being really calm with them, helps you both kind of calm down in that moment, if it allows you both can take that time to do that. And of course, if you need a moment, right, we all need moments. If you need a moment to just kind of take a step back, or I'm going to be right over here, but I need to take a minute for myself because I'm feeling a little frustrated too. That's okay to vocalize to your child, or if your partner can step in if they're available. I think we all need those moments to just calm down. We need to model it, but we can't always model it if we're really stressed out.
Right.
Yeah, I think that you touch on a very interesting point, which is sometimes we're overwhelmed by the situation because of the day that you've had, and then you get back home, and then one of the children is just wanting to do something now, and you can't just help her. But Leigha brought up the issue of the partner or the spouse or whomever is there. So these kinds of handling the situations typically involve one or two people, that is the other adult at home. So how does that relate to you two guys, to Christopher and to Miranda?
So my husband travels a lot for work, so there's not always another person. But with my 3-year-old testing boundaries, I've found it helpful. She will verbalize now that she is angry when she doesn't get her way. So she says, "I'm angry." And I always tell her, you can be angry, but you can't be mean to other people. And if you're angry, a lot of times she will walk down our hallway and go to her room. And I said, that's fine if you want to be angry and go to your room, as long as you're not being mean to other people. So that's how we've learned to manage this, because it is hard. When he's not there, he is very helpful. When he is there, he can take her and distract her from the situation, and she can move on. But it has taken a lot of time to get to that point where she can verbalize what she's feeling. And like 3, that's been the moment where she's realized, I am very angry. And we're trying to tunnel that into doing something else to distract her by going to her room. And she just sits in there and she'll play and move on from that emotion.
How did you get to that point? Like, are there some things that happened leading up to that you can remember or think of that got her there?
Honestly, we talk about emotions a lot. I teach social emotional learning with my first graders. They're 6 and 7. So I think that's been helpful. But they also, she's also seen some things on television too. Not gonna lie, Miss Rachel has been very wonderful. She explicitly explains all these emotions and says, like, if you're feeling angry, it's okay. And so we just go off of that. And now she realizes, I'm angry, like, I need to deal with that instead of becoming angrier. And I think I would tell her, like, if you're angry, that's okay. Like, but you need to go do something else that makes you happy. And so some friends have asked me, well, you just send her to her room? And I'm like, well, I'll walk her there and get her started on something else. And then now she just says, I'm angry. And I said, well, if you're going to be angry, you can go play in your room. And that's what she does. So now it's an independent regulation.
Yeah.
So.
Are there other emotions that she'll say that about other than angry?
She knows all the emotions. So she'll say, I'm angry, I'm happy, or I'm mad sometimes. And she'll, make fists and clench them and act like I'm mad. But she's really just exploring those emotions all together. She'll say, I'm surprised, different things.
I'm afraid. No.
Sometimes she'll say that's spooky. If she's scared, she'll say that's spooky. Yeah. So,
what about you, Chris?
So with our 2 girls, sometimes what comes into play in our house is that my wife and I have different parenting styles at times. So that invites a conversation between the 2 of us of what that looks like, and sometimes it's a disagreement, and that's fine. We discuss that, but we too try to acknowledge whenever we see an emotion, we try to explain or mention what kind of emotion that is. Hey, I see that you're really upset right now, and that's okay, but I really, I'm going to try and redirect you by asking you to help do this. Or one of the things that I personally will do is change their scenery. So if they're really upset, instead I will maybe take them outside. So it breaks that concentration of focusing so heavily on whatever has them really upset. So that's some of the things that we do. And obviously one of the things that I try to work on, and my wife does a good job too, is keeping me in check with my emotions. I'm not a very emotional guy, but sometimes I may react in a way that I'm just not aware of it. So she'll gently nudge me of hey, here's what's going on, or here's what I'm viewing, and it'll kind of bring me back because I try very hard to model what I would like them to see. So, but we do a good job a lot of the times, I appreciate you, Leigha, hyping me up, telling me I was doing a good job. Sometimes as a parent, I need that. But that's where we try to play off of each other and do it as a unit versus one and the other, not the good cop, bad cop. It's a balance, so...
You said that you and your wife have a very different style. What are you talking about? Could you be specific about that?
Sure. So I would say that I am much more, not passive, but I'm somebody that welcomes hey, I can see that you're having a really tough time right now. Let's talk about it. Let's explore. And my wife does the same thing, but as far as kind of who holds the line a little tighter sometimes, I would say that's my wife, who kind of is seen as that role a little bit. And that's one of the discussions that we've had as well, where she feels that sometimes I'm maybe not as strong in that role. And it just might be because it's a dad with two daughters, and I'm very empathetic to that.
Okay.
So she holds me to that line, and that's where I've changed my style to meet that a little more, because I do see where some of those boundaries I bend a little more on.
Okay.
So they probably get away with a little more with me in that regard than maybe where my wife will hold them a little closer. But we also discuss a lot how both my daughters are very similar to my wife, and see a lot of that where emotionally they have the same kind of immediate reaction style, so that clashes sometimes. And so it's just a very interesting dynamic in our house.
Yeah, that sounds all really normal. Like, I think it's very common to disagree on some of those things, and it makes it hard in the moment as to what to do. I think as often we find partners that have very similar values overall to us, but when it comes to the heat of the moment and who's giving in to that, like, oh yeah, you can have one more M&M, right? As opposed to like, no, we're standing firm. There can be like little conflicts in that moment. But it's great that you talk about it offline. Sometimes it's about or a lot of the time it's about showing up as a united front to your kid, right? That you're on the same page. And even that might mean giving in to what your partner said and going with it, even if maybe that's not your instinct in the moment, but just showing up, being like, okay, this is like what mom said we're going to do, so we're going to do that. And then maybe talking offline to your partner, like, I don't know if I loved how we handled that. Can we talk about that? And it's okay to change it with your kid, right? Like, consistency is important to a degree, but kids understand when you say, look, we let you have that extra M&M, and mom and I talked about it afterward, and we realized that probably you should be only having one at dinner time or something like that. And this is what we're going to do moving forward. And I think kids, especially when they, reach 2, 3, 4, can be really responsive to that.
Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about the relationships in the home, how we handle these things, but we haven't really talked about when we're in public. And I feel like that's a huge factor for parents,
Yes.
when they go out or they're at a restaurant or shopping or, doing daily life out and about. What are some tips to handle the situation when you're in the public?
Do you mean like when your kids are having a tantrum in public?
Possibly.
Yeah, that's really hard, because sometimes if your kid is a little bit more emotionally intense, you might not want to go and do all the things because you're worried about having that tantrum in public and what that's going to look like. And you want it to diffuse it as quickly as possible, but then are you kind of compromising on the boundary or the limit that you want to set for yourself? So that's hard. I would say that, like, if it ever comes to, like, you're not going anywhere with your kid because of worrying about things like that, that might be a time to seek some extra support. But in general, if you can try to hold those boundaries in public, I think people are generally really understanding if, your kid is having a meltdown, right? But there are things we can do to distract them. I love how you both mentioned a lot of redirecting. I think that's critical kind of throughout early childhood, right? If something seems really upsetting, how can we just move on? How can we distract? How can we re-engage them in something else that can be just as compelling as that thing that they want at the grocery store that they can't have? Can they help us with something else in the grocery store, for instance? So there are different ways we can handle it, but it's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
That social pressure is there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Leigha, Dr. MacNeill,
Leigha's good.
Would you say, based on your expertise on the issue, are there any gender? Because both of them, are there any gender differences? Because both Miranda and Chris's kids are girls.
Yeah.
So are there any difference between boys and girls and public behavior, or actually the way parents, behave towards boys and towards girls?
It's probably more of that one, right?
Uh-huh.
That latter, where, like, young kids are going to have tantrums regardless of gender. But sometimes that behavior by parent changes, and we see differences when it's like dad and girls versus mom and girls sometimes, and with boys. But I think there's this kind of expectation that girls might be more quiet and well behaved when you're both shaking your heads, of course.
No.
But like that's not what we see, and that's not what's true, right? And so we shouldn't try to carry those expectations we have for a particular gender as we're trying to parent. It's more about parenting our specific kid. Right. But I love that you both are like, that's not our case.
No, ours is, we see the difference between just the individuality of our 4-year-old is very emotionally intelligent already, very empathetic, and then our 2-year-old is not. She is, I would say, emotionally intelligent, but she is one that is kind of the wild one, I guess you could say. She's the one that you could kind of redirect, and she's going to do whatever she wants to do anyway, where our 4-year-old is much more responsive to the redirection. So that's where our big challenge is at this point, is learning how to manage both with different personalities ultimately.
Yeah, it could be like a temperament difference. It could be like a birth order difference there. It could just be developmental age, right? Is that the 4-year-old is going to just be able to handle it a little bit better. And then they're dynamic together too. Also, they feed off of each other in different ways. So it's a lot to handle there.
Have either of you had an example in public that you can think of? And maybe how you handled it or something?
Well, there's a lot of it, I feel like. For instance, going to church on Sundays is challenging because a 3-year-old doesn't sit for an hour. So that's been really difficult. And obviously it's hard to do by myself with the baby and the 3-year-old. So usually we will stay home and watch online if I don't have the support and the help with me. But if we go, my husband's really good about like taking her to walk in the hallway a little bit and then trying to bring her back to join us. It's also really difficult when you're in a store and your kid's having a fit about wanting a toy or candy, whatever the item is, because you just feel like everyone's staring at you. But I feel like it's really important to stay strong with the boundary and just try and block out what you think people are thinking, because I don't think they're always thinking that, and you probably believe they're thinking that when they're not. But it's in the moment, it's really challenging to think everyone's staring at me. Like, that's what you immediately think.
Yeah, like your kid's out of control, or you can't handle that kid, or you're not setting those limits when you in fact are.
Right.
Right? So I think, you're doing a lot of that redirection can be really helpful in reminding them that maybe they have XYZ at home, or things like that can be good.
Yeah. So Chris, do you have some great final tips you would provide parents?
Tips?
Yeah.
My
or
tip
advice.
is that anyone listening, you're doing a great job. Parenting is the toughest job that everybody wants, I think, to some degree. And every day is a different challenge, and be fluid. That's kind of what I try to keep in mind, and just learn, because as my girls grow, I know they're going to change. Personalities are going to change. They're going to learn. So I need to learn with them and learn with my wife as well. And it will help progress our relationship as well, because we have a lot of those hard discussions, and sometimes they're not until the next day. So because I will admit I'm not the best at sharing my own emotions sometimes with her. So it's something I've been trying to work on, because I want the girls to see that that's one way you can deal with it. So, just pay attention, listen, and have fun, because time moves very quickly.
Yeah. Miranda, do you have any last thoughts?
My advice would be just to enjoy every minute, because all those small moments are really the big moments.
And your last thoughts, Dr. MacNeill?
I love both of those. I would say be patient with your kid and yourselves. I think, when we can put ourselves in our kids' shoes sometimes, and knowing that developmentally the things that we're asking them to do are actually really hard for them, we can kind of approach those distressing situations with a little bit more calmness and empathy, rather than out of like being confused or just angry in that moment. So just being patient with everybody, knowing this is really hard, what we're all doing. I guess I would also say, like, your mental health matters, your well-being matters. So again, if you need to take a step back for a minute, if you need to focus on something that would bring you joy, that's also okay, because we're the best parents when we also feel fulfilled and happy. And then I think lastly, I would just say that if for some reason things, to anyone listening, if, big emotions are just getting too out of control, or, they're happening out of the blue, or they're really intense or prolonged, or kids can't calm down no matter what you do, feel free to seek, extra help and support with that, because that's really hard. And you can always talk to your pediatrician to get some more advice in that area. But yes, you're doing awesome.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? You just made me. One thing I didn't add is that I'm an extension educator as well, and do teach some classes. And one of the things that I always talk to parents about as well, that I try to do, is we're number one, take care of yourself first, and then take care of your children. Because if you're struggling, if you are having issues with stuff, that will precipitate through. So it is okay to put yourself at number one. That is one thing I advocate to all of my friends that have kids is, take time for yourself. Take a step back. Take that 5 minutes, because if you don't, that's where we can get into issues. So always take care of yourself first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for that advice. And it is very important to take care of yourself, because if you're not well, you're not going to be able to handle those tough situations as well, or stay calm in the moment. That becomes very, very hard. So great advice from all of you. Any last thoughts?
No, not really, other than emphasizing what Dr. MacNeil mentioned, the importance of keeping in mind that kids, like all of us, take time to learn things. So even when you tell them once, twice, 3 times, it'll require more time. It took us so many years to get to where we are. So you need to allow time for them to learn about emotions, about to handle behavior, and so on. Other than that, I want to thank you all for your time here, for your conversation. This has been fun. To all of you out there, hope you join us in our next episode. Our hosts today have been Dr. MacNeill, Leigha MacNeill from the Department of Human Development and Family Science, Miranda Goetz from Lafayette, and Christopher Fogle from somewhere Indiana.
Greensburg,
Indiana. Perfect. And Kelsey Mueller, one of the hosts here, and myself, Herman Posada. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Next episode.
This was fun.
We hope you're walking away with fresh ideas and a deeper appreciation for the power of early experiences. Remember, childhood isn't just a phase, it is the foundation.
We look forward to your feedback about this episode by completing a short 2 or 3 minute evaluation. You can find the link in the podcast notes. The first 50 respondents who complete the evaluation will receive a $20 gift card. We want to thank our sound engineer, Nick Bertling, and we are your hosts, Kelsey and Herman. Join us for our next episode. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep unlocking what makes every child flourish.